Jackson Square in New Orleans fell silent. 3,000 people held their breath. The last note of "And the Waltz Goes On" faded away as André Rieu suddenly lowered his bow. "Stop! Everyone stop!" His voice trembled, not with anger, but with something no one in the audience had ever heard in him before. Panic. The violins froze, the harps fell silent, and even the summer breeze seemed to freeze above the square. In the fourth row sat a man, his hands trembling, his face wet with tears. He tried to hide, but André had already seen him. The man whispered something almost inaudible, but it was enough to throw the maestro off balance. "He says he hears her voice," a security guard said confusedly in André's earpiece. "What does he mean by her voice?" asked Jackson. But André wasn't listening anymore. He gently placed his 400-year-old Stradivarius down on the conductor's chair, grabbed the microphone, and stepped off the stage. Security tried to stop him. "Mr. Rieu, you can't walk among the audience. It's against protocol." "Protocol can wait a moment," André replied softly but firmly. He walked slowly through the rows, the spotlight following him, until he stood before the man. The spectators held their breath. The man, pale and exhausted, looked up. "André, she just sang your melody," he whispered in a broken voice. "Who?" André asked softly. "My daughter Lily," said the man. "She's gone." A collective shudder went through the crowd. André's fingers stiffened around the microphone. He recognized the name. His face lost color. "What did you say?" he asked slowly. "The piece you just played was her music." And at that moment, in the middle of a sultry New Orleans summer evening, André Rieu realized that he had just allowed someone who was no longer there to speak through his own orchestra. 12 hours earlier, Jackson Square was still a quiet oasis of summer serenity. The sun burned warmly on the old stones. Tourists strolled past the cafes with iced coffees in their hands, and the scent of fresh beignets floated through the air. Technicians hauled cables and speakers, tuned instruments, and checked the lighting for André Rieu's annual summer concert. In a small apartment on the outskirts of New Orleans, Nathan Winters sat at his kitchen table, staring at a yellowed envelope. His hands trembled as he opened it for the 10th time that morning. Inside lay a handwritten score titled "Echo of the Stars," written in the elegant handwriting of his daughter Lily. Small stars above the eyes, just as she had always done since she was little. It was exactly a year ago that he had lost her. A year since the phone call that changed his world forever. Lily had been 19 on her way to an audition for the Young Talent competition in New York, a competition where André Rieu himself would be a judge. She had practiced for weeks, perfecting her composition down to the smallest detail. "Dad, this will be my breakthrough," she had said radiantly. "André Rieu is going to hear my music." But she never arrived. A truck ran a red light on I-10, and in a fraction of a second everything was over. Nathan still remembered how the police officer stood at the door, the compassionate face, the words that shattered his heart. He remembered driving to the hospital, knowing he was too late. He remembered her violin, undamaged, beside her in the ambulance. Since then, he had avoided music. Every note hurt. But this morning, when he was clearing out her room, he found this envelope hidden in her desk drawer. A letter addressed to André Rieu, never sent, with her composition inside. "In case I'm ever not here anymore," was written in the corner in pencil, as if she had added it at the last moment. Nathan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. How could she have known? Had she felt something that morning? Had she had a premonition? He shook his head. That was nonsense. It was just coincidence. But still, the words wouldn't leave him. He looked at the clock. The concert would start in 7 hours. Maybe, he thought, maybe this was his chance to fulfill her wish. Maybe he could hand the letter to André Rieu personally. He grabbed his jacket and put the envelope in his inside pocket. His heart pounded as he walked out the door. He had no ticket, no plan, only a desperate need to do something, anything, to keep her dream alive. Meanwhile, in the backstage area of Jackson Square, André Rieu sat at his dressing table, staring at the set list for that evening. His son Jackson stood beside him, scrolling through his phone. "Dad, the cameras are all ready. We're going live on television, so no improvisations tonight, okay?" André smiled faintly. "When have I ever improvised?" Jackson looked at him with a raised eyebrow. "Last week, when you decided to allow a marriage proposal on stage in the middle of a performance. That was spontaneous, not improvised," corrected André. "There's a difference." Jackson sighed. "Tonight, just follow the set list, please. No surprises." André nodded, but his attention was already distracted. He flipped through the numbers and frowned when he saw an unfamiliar title. "Echo of the Stars. When did we add this?" Jackson looked over his shoulder. "This morning. Melody insisted on it. She said it was a beautiful composition she found in the archives. I approved it, seeing as she's our best violinist. André nodded slowly, but something about the title made him uneasy. Echo of the Stars. It sounded melancholic, as if it was more than just music. Who wrote it? No idea, said Jackson. There was no name on the score, just the title. André wanted to ask more, but was interrupted by a knock on the door. Melody came in, her violin in hand, a nervous smile on her face. Maestro, I wanted to thank you for adding the new piece. It means a lot to me. Why? Asked André curiously. What's the story behind it? Melody hesitated. I don't really know exactly. I found the score in an old box in the archives, among other forgotten compositions, but when I played it, it felt as if it was written to be heard, as if someone had been waiting for the right moment to come. André felt a shiver run down his spine. Played to be heard, he repeated softly. By whom? Melody shrugged. Maybe by someone who needs it. At that moment, on the other side of the square, Nathan reached the entrance to Jackson Square. Security guards were checking tickets and the lines were long. He felt the envelope burning in his jacket pocket. As if Lily's words wanted to break through the paper, he had to get inside. He had to see André Rieu. Sir, your ticket, please, said a security guard. I don't have a ticket, Nathan confessed, but I need to speak to someone. It's urgent. The security guard shook his head. Sorry, sir. You can't get in without a ticket. We're sold out. Nathan felt panic rising. You don't understand. My daughter. She wrote music for André Rieu. I have to give it to him. Many people say that, sir. You can send a letter to his office. But, Nathan began, but the security guard had already turned to the next person in line. Nathan stepped aside, his heart pounding. He looked at the square, at the people slowly taking their places. He had to find a way to get inside. He had to. And then he saw something. A side door, half open, where technicians were bringing in equipment. Without thinking, he walked over, waited until no one was looking, and slipped inside. Inside was a chaos of activity. People were running back and forth with cables. Instruments were being tuned. Someone was shouting instructions through a walkie-talkie. Nathan kept low and walked along the walls, his heart pounding in his throat. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to find André Rieu. He turned a corner and almost bumped into someone. It was Jackson, André's son, with a clipboard in his hand. Hey, who are you? You shouldn't be here. I'm sorry, stammered Nathan. I'm looking for André Rieu. I have something for him. Jackson looked at him suspiciously. Security is over there, he pointed. They can escort you out. No, wait, said Nathan desperately. He took the envelope from his pocket. This is from my daughter. She wrote music for him. Please give this to him. Jackson was about to refuse, but something in Nathan's eyes made him hesitate. He saw the yellowed envelope, the elegant handwriting, the title, Echo of the Stars. His heart skipped a beat. Wait, did you say Echo of the Stars? Nathan nodded. That was her composition. She wanted André Rieu to hear it. Jackson's face turned pale. When did she write this? A year ago, just before she died. The world seemed to stand still. Jackson stared at the envelope, then at Nathan, then back at the envelope. Wait here, he finally said. Don't move. He ran away, the envelope in his hand. Nathan remained behind, his heart pounding, not knowing what would happen. Had he done the right thing, or had he made everything worse? Minutes later, Jackson returned with André Rieu behind him. The maestro looked at Nathan with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. You're the father of Lily Winters? Nathan nodded, his throat too tight to speak. André held up the envelope. And this is her composition? Yes, whispered Nathan. She wrote it for you. She wanted you to hear it. André slowly opened the envelope, took out the score, and began to read. His eyes scanned the notes and suddenly he stopped. His face turned ashen. This can't be true. What is it? Asked Jackson, concerned. André looked up, his hands trembling. This is the same piece we're going to play tonight. Exactly the same, note for note. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan felt his knees buckling. How is that possible? I don't know, said André, his voice barely audible. But this isn't the first time I've heard her name. Nathan frowned. What do you mean? André looked at him, his eyes full of a strange kind of recognition. Years ago, when I gave a benefit concert at a children's hospital in Boston, I met a girl. She was 11, and she asked me if music could heal pain. I said yes, if it's played with love. She promised me that one day she would prove I was right. Nathan's breath caught. Lily told me about that day. She said she met you, but I thought she had made it up. It was no invention, said André softly. I still remember her. She had the same eyes as you, full of dreams. A tear rolled down Nathan's cheek. She dreamed of playing with you. That was all she wanted. André looked at the score in his hands, then at Nathan, then at Jackson. Then she will play with us tonight. Jackson's eyes widened. Dad, what do you mean? I mean, said André determinedly, that we play this piece, and we play it for her. Nathan, you'll come on stage tonight. You don't have to play, but you'll be there for Lily. Nathan shook his head. I can't, I'm not a musician, You're her father, interrupted André. That's all that matters. And so, as the sun slowly set behind the rooftops of New Orleans, a plan was forged that would change everything. A plan that would lead to the moment when André Rieu would stop his concert in the middle of a performance for a man who was crying for his lost daughter. But before that moment came, there were still questions that needed to be answered. Questions about how Lily's composition had ended up in the archive, questions about why no one had seen her name, and questions about what would really happen that evening when the music began to play. The concert started right on time. 3,000 people filled Jackson Square, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of the evening sun. Cameras rolled, live streams went on air, and André Rieu took the stage to thunderous applause. He smiled, bowed, and raised his bow. The orchestra began with The Beautiful Blue Danube, and the crowd began to sing. But behind the facade of perfection, André's heart was pounding in his throat. He looked to the side of the stage where Nathan was nervously waiting. The man looked lost, as if he didn't understand how he had ended up here. Jackson stood beside him, his hand on Nathan's shoulder as if trying to reassure him. The first part of the concert went flawlessly. The audience danced, laughed, and enjoyed the familiar melodies. But André couldn't keep his thoughts off Lily. Her name echoed in his head like a ghost that wouldn't disappear. How had her music ended up in the archive? And why had no one seen her name? After the third number, André announced a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a 5-minute rest. Stay seated. We'll be right back. He put down his violin and quickly walked backstage where Melody was waiting. Melody, he said urgently, I need to know exactly where you found that score. She looked surprised. As I said, maestro, in the archives, in an old box with forgotten compositions. But who put that box there? And when? Melody frowned. I don't know. I thought they were old works from former orchestra members. Why are you asking this? André hesitated. Should he tell her? Should he explain that the composition they had added was from a girl who was no longer here? Before he could answer, Jackson came running up, his face pale. Dad, you need to see this. He held up his phone. On the screen was a message from the sound technician. We found something strange in the recording from yesterday evening's sound check. Listen here. André put on the headphones and listened. At first, he only heard the orchestra rehearsing Echo of the Stars. But then, very softly, almost inaudible, there was a voice. A woman's voice humming along with the melody. André's heart skipped a beat. Who is that? That's the problem, said Jackson. None of us was singing. The microphones were open, but there was no one nearby who knew this melody. It's as if the voice came out of nowhere. Melody turned pale. That's not possible. Let me hear, said Nathan, who had approached. Jackson gave him the headphones. Nathan listened, and within seconds his eyes began to water. That's Lily, he whispered. That's my daughter. The silence that followed was suffocating. André felt his hands trembling. How is that possible? Nathan shook his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. I don't know, but I would recognize her voice out of thousands. That's her. Jackson looked nervously around. Dad, we should cancel this concert. This is too strange, too scary. But André shook his head. No, we go on. If Lily is here in whatever way, then she deserves to be heard. But, Jackson began, but André had already turned around and was walking back to the stage. The audience applauded as he returned, not knowing what had happened backstage. André picked up his violin, raised his bow, and announced the next number. Ladies and gentlemen, this next piece is special. It's called Echo of the Stars, and it was written by a young talent who is unfortunately no longer with us. Tonight we play it for her. The lights dimmed and the orchestra began. The melody was beautiful, melancholic, and hopeful at the same time. The audience listened in silence, captivated by the emotion in the music, and then halfway through the piece it happened. André heard it first, a soft voice, almost whispering, singing along with his violin. He looked around quickly, but none of the orchestra members were singing. The voice was coming from the speakers, the same voice Jackson had let him hear. The audience heard it too. People began to murmur, look at each other, point to the speakers. What is that? Someone on the first row whispered. Is that part of the performance? Asked another. But Nathan knew. He stood at the side of the stage, his face wet with tears, staring at the speakers as if he could see his daughter. Lily, he whispered, I hear you. André felt his hands trembling as he continued to play. The voice grew stronger, as if Lily herself was standing beside him. And then, at the emotional climax of the piece, The music stopped abruptly. André lowered his bow and looked out at the audience. His eyes searched for answers, for understanding, for something that made sense. And that was the moment when he saw him, the man in the fourth row, his face in his hands, his body shaking with grief. It was Nathan. He had slipped off the stage during the number and had unobtrusively found an empty seat in the audience. And now he sat there, overwhelmed by emotions too great to comprehend. André felt something break inside him. He couldn't continue playing, not without knowing what was going on, not without understanding why Lily's voice was echoing through Jackson Square. He put down his violin, picked up the microphone, and said the words that would change everything. Stop. Everyone stop. The orchestra fell silent. The audience collectively held their breath, and André stepped off the stage, his eyes fixed on the man who was crying for his lost daughter. Security tried to stop André as he walked between the rows of seats. "Mr. Rieu, you can't just go into the audience," a security guard said urgently. "Let me go," said André, calm but determined. "This man needs me." He reached the fourth row and crouched down next to Nathan. The cameras kept rolling. The livestream audience watched with bated breath. "Sir, are you all right?" André asked softly. Nathan looked up, his eyes red and swollen. "I heard her voice, my Lily. She was singing her own melody." The murmuring in the audience grew louder. People began to whisper, some were crying too. André put his hand on Nathan's shoulder. "Tell me about her." "She was everything," whispered Nathan. "My only child. Her mother died when she was 6, so it was always just the two of us. Music was her life. She practiced for hours every day, dreamed of the conservatory, of concerts, of you." André felt his throat tightening. "When did she write this piece?" "In the last week of her life," said Nathan, his voice breaking. "She said it would be her masterpiece. She wanted you to hear it at the Young Talent competition, but she never made it." "What happened?" asked André, although he already feared the answer. Nathan closed his eyes. "An accident on the highway. She was on her way to New York for the audition. A truck ran a red light. She didn't have a chance." The silence that followed was painful. André felt tears welling up in his own eyes. He looked around at the audience, at the thousands of faces staring at them, and made a decision. "Nathan, come with me to the stage." "What? No, I can't." "Yes, you can," said André. "Lily is playing with us tonight, and you are here as her representative." He helped Nathan to his feet and led him through the row to the aisle. The audience spontaneously began to applaud, hesitantly at first, then louder. People stood up, tears streaming down faces, and someone shouted, "For Lily!" As they walked to the stage, Jackson whispered in André's earpiece, "Dad." The sound technician says the voice can still be heard. Even now, while we're not playing, it's coming from nowhere. André glanced quickly at the technical booth. The sound man was staring at his equipment with wide eyes, turning knobs that changed nothing. The voice continued to hum softly, as if Lily was waiting for them to continue playing. Upon reaching the stage, André turned to the orchestra. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play Echo of the Stars again, this time not as a performance but as a tribute." He looked at Melody. "You were the first to play this piece. Would you like to solo it?" Melody nodded, her own eyes moist. She put her violin under her chin and waited for the signal, but before André could raise his bow, something unexpected happened. On the large screen behind the orchestra, which normally showed images of the concert, an image suddenly flickered. It was brief, barely a second, but everyone saw it. A young girl with a violin smiling at the camera, and then it was gone. The audience collectively gasped. "What was that?" someone called out. Jackson ran to the technical booth. "What's happening with those screens?" The technician shook his head in panic. "I don't know, I didn't click anything, it just appeared on the screen. And look here," he pointed to his computer. "This is the recording of that image. It doesn't come from any camera. It's as if someone uploaded it, but no one has access to our system." Jackson looked at the image on the monitor. The girl on the screen was young, maybe 18 or 19, with dark hair and a violin against her shoulder. She was smiling, and there was something familiar about her face. "Nathan," Jackson called, "come here." Nathan walked to the booth, his legs unsteady. When he saw the image, he almost fell. "That's Lily. That's my daughter. But how? When was this photo taken?" asked Jackson. "A week before the accident," whispered Nathan. "She sent it to me from the practice room of her music school. She was so happy with how she looked that day." Jackson felt his heart pounding. "But how can this photo be in our system?" "It can't," said the technician. Unless what?" Jackson pressed. "Unless someone uploaded it. But you would need physical access to our servers for that, and they're in a locked room backstage." Jackson ran to the server room. The door was ajar. He pushed it open and saw something strange. On the floor next to the servers, lay a USB stick. He picked it up and read the label, "For André Rieu, from Lily." His hands trembled as he plugged the USB stick into his laptop. There was one file on it, a video. He clicked on it. The screen filled with the image of Lily, sitting in a room with her violin. She smiled at the camera and began to speak. "Hello, Mr. Rieu. My name is Lily Winters, and if you're watching this, it probably means I'm no longer here." Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. "I don't know why I'm recording this. Maybe a premonition, maybe just caution. But I wanted you to hear my music, whatever happens." She put her violin under her chin and began to play. The melody was beautiful, exactly the same as what the orchestra had played that evening. Jackson stared at the screen. His breath caught. "How?" The video stopped abruptly and a text message appeared on the screen. This USB was delivered to the reception of Jackson Square 2 days ago. Sender unknown. Jackson ran back to the stage, the laptop under his arm. "Dad, you need to see this." André looked at the screen and his face turned deathly pale. "Play it," he said. "For everyone." Jackson hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Do it." The video was projected on the large screen behind the orchestra. The audience watched in silence as Lily spoke, played and expressed her last wish. When the video ended, there was not a sound to be heard, only the wind blowing through Jackson Square. Nathan stood in the middle of the stage, his face wet with tears. "Who brought that USB?" he asked desperately. Jackson shook his head. "The receptionist said it was a woman dressed in black with a headscarf. She dropped off the USB and left without saying anything." "That's impossible," whispered Nathan. "No one knew about this video, only me and Lily." "Unless," said André slowly, "someone did it for her. Someone who knew what was going to happen." A cold shiver went through the group. Jackson looked at his father. "What do you mean?" André looked at the score in his hands, then at the USB stick, then at Nathan. "Lily said she had a premonition. What if she knew she didn't have much time left? What if she had planned all this just in case?" Nathan shook his head. "But how could she know it would be played today? How could she know I would be here?" "She couldn't," said André, "unless this is no coincidence. Unless this is her way of letting us know she's still here." The audience began to murmur. Some thought it was a setup, an emotional stunt. Others believed something supernatural was happening. But André knew one thing for certain. Whatever was happening, Lily's music had to be heard. "We continue," he said resolutely. "Nathan, sit down, watch us, and listen to your daughter." The orchestra began again, this time with more emotion than ever before. The melody filled Jackson Square, carried by the wind, the stars, and the memories of a girl who never got the chance to fulfill her dream. And as André played, he felt something he had never felt before, as if someone was standing beside him, playing along, guiding him through the notes. When the piece ended, the audience remained silent, and then, slowly, one person began to applaud, then 2, then 10. And within seconds, the entire Jackson Square was standing, applauding, crying, and calling out Lily's name. André put down his violin and walked to Nathan. "She heard it," he said softly. "Wherever she is, she heard it." Nathan nodded, too emotional to speak, but deep inside he knew that André was right. Lily had fulfilled her dream, and in a strange, unexplainable way, she had been with them on that stage tonight. The concert was over, but Jackson Square did not empty. People remained standing, some crying, others sharing their own stories of loss and music. Journalists crowded around the stage, cameras flashed, and questions were called from all sides. "Mr. Rieu, was this planned? Who was the girl in the video? Is this a publicity stunt?" André ignored them all. He walked over to Nathan, who was still sitting on the stage, staring at the empty seats. "Come," said André. "Let's talk somewhere quiet." They retreated to André's dressing room, along with Jackson and Melody. The space was small and stuffy, but it was a welcome escape from the chaos outside. Nathan sat on a chair, his hands trembling, his face pale. "I don't understand," he whispered. "How could all this have happened?" Jackson shook his head. "Neither do I. But there is someone who does have answers. That woman who delivered the USB. We need to find her," said Melody. "She's the key to all of this." André nodded. "Jackson, go to reception. Ask for the security footage from 2 days ago. Maybe we can see who she was." Jackson left immediately. André turned to Nathan. "Tell me more about Lily. Did she have friends? People who might have known about this video," Nathan thought. "She had a best friend, Zoe. They studied together at the conservatory. But Zoe moved to Germany 6 months ago for a scholarship. They had little contact after that." "Anyone else?" André pressed. "Her teacher, maybe. Mrs. Caldwell. She had been teaching Lily since she was 8. But she knew nothing about the USB, I'm certain of that. I spoke to her after the accident, and she was just as grief-stricken as I was." André frowned. And you said Lily's mother died a long time ago. Nathan nodded. When Lily was 6, it was just the two of us since then. No other family members? Cousins, nieces, aunts. My sister, Rachel, but she lives in California and has hardly any contact with us. She and Lily never had a close bond. Jackson returned, his face tense. I have the footage. He put his laptop on the table and played the recording. On the screen was the reception of Jackson Square, a date and timestamp in the corner, 2 days ago, 4:47 p.m. The footage showed people walking in and out, tourists buying tickets, staff hurrying past. And then, at 4:53 p.m., she appeared, a woman dressed in black, with a long coat and a headscarf that largely concealed her face. She walked to the reception desk, put something down and left without saying a word. Stop, said André. Zoom in on her face. Jackson did as asked, but the image was grainy. The headscarf concealed most of her face, and what was visible was too blurry to recognize. Damn, muttered Jackson. We can't identify her. Nathan leaned forward, his eyes squinting. Wait, that coat. I know that coat. Everyone turned to him. What do you mean? Asked André. Lily had a coat like that, said Nathan slowly. A black woolen coat with a special button on the front. She bought it at a flea market years ago. It was her favorite coat. Jackson played the video again. The woman turned around before she left, and for a fraction of a second, the front of the coat was visible. There was indeed an unusual button on it, large and metal, with a 4-leaf clover engraved on it. Nathan's breath caught. That's Lily's coat. I recognize that button. I gave it to her for her 16th birthday. The room fell silent. Melody spoke first. But that's impossible. Lily is gone. Exactly, said Jackson. So, who's wearing her coat? Nathan stood up, his face contorted with confusion and fear. I don't know, maybe someone found it, or borrowed it. Where was the coat when Lily died? Asked André. Nathan thought. In her room, I think. I didn't give it away. All her things are still as she left them. So someone entered your house and took the coat, said Jackson incredulously, without you noticing. Or, said Melody slowly, Lily had given the coat to someone earlier, before she died. Nathan shook his head. I don't believe that. She loved that coat too much. André got up and began to pace. This is getting stranger and stranger. We have a video of Lily, recorded before she died. We have a USB that was delivered 2 days ago by a woman in Lily's coat. And we have a composition that mysteriously ended up in our archives. This can't be a coincidence. What do you suggest? Asked Jackson. We go to Nathan's house, said André. We need to see Lily's room. Maybe we'll find clues there. Nathan hesitated. I haven't touched her room since she died. I understand, said André softly. But if we want answers, we have no choice. An hour later, they stood in front of Nathan's apartment on the outskirts of New Orleans. It was a modest flat in a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by old trees and silent streets. Nathan opened the door with trembling hands. Her room is upstairs, he said. They walked up the stairs. The door to Lily's room was closed, with a small sign with her name on it. Nathan placed his hand on the doorknob but didn't move. I haven't been in here since her funeral. André placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't have to come inside if you don't want to. Nathan shook his head. No, I have to do this. He opened the door. The room was exactly as Lily had left it. The bed was made with a teddy bear on it. The desk was covered with sheet music, pencils, and a half-full glass of water. On the wall hung posters of famous violinists, including one of André Rieu himself. Melody walked to the desk and looked at the sheet music. This is her work. Look at the handwriting. It's the same as on the score of Echo of the Stars. Jackson opened the closet. And the coat. Is it here? Nathan walked to the closet and looked inside. His face turned pale. It's gone. The black coat is gone. When did you last see it? Asked André. Right after the funeral. I hung all her coats back in the closet. I'm certain it was there. So someone took it, said Jackson. But who? And why? Melody pulled open a drawer and began searching through it. Maybe she left something here. A diary, a letter, something that can help us. They found nothing in the first drawer, but in the second, Melody found a small notebook. She opened it and began to read. Her face changed. You need to see this. She gave the notebook to André. It was Lily's diary, full of notes about music, practice schedules, and personal thoughts. André flipped through it until he came to the last page. There, in Lily's handwriting, it said, If I die before I can share my music with the world, I want someone to do it for me. Zoe has promised to send my score to André Rieu, and if that doesn't work, she has the USB with my video. She knows what to do. André looked up. Zoe, her best friend. Nathan nodded slowly. But Zoe lives in Germany. How could she... Unless she came back, interrupted Jackson. For this. André picked up his phone. "Nathan, do you have Zoe's number?" Nathan gave him the number, and André called. The phone rang, once, twice, 3 times, and then it was answered. A woman's voice, soft and nervous. "Hello? Zoe, this is André Rieu speaking." There was a long silence. "Mr. Rieu?" "Yes. I'm standing here with Nathan Winters, Lily's father. We need to talk to you." Another silence. And then, almost whispering, "I knew you would call." "Were you the woman on the security footage?" asked André. "Yes." "Why did you deliver the USB?" "Because Lily asked me to. Just before she died, she gave me instructions. If something happened to her, I had to make sure you heard her music and that you would meet Nathan." "Why now? Why not right after her death?" Zoe's voice trembled. "Because she said it had to happen at the right moment. And 2 days ago, I had a dream. Lily was standing in front of me and said, 'It's time.' So I did what she had asked me." André felt a shiver run down his spine. "A dream?" "I know how it sounds," said Zoe, "but I swear it was real. And when I woke up, I knew what I had to do." "Where are you now?" asked André. "In Germany. I went back yesterday after delivering the USB. I didn't dare stay. I was afraid Nathan would recognize me." "He recognized your coat," said André. Zoe laughed sadly. "That was Lily's idea. She said that if I ever had to fulfill her wish, I should wear her coat, so Nathan would know it came from her." André looked at Nathan, who was listening with tears in his eyes. "Zoe, did Lily know she was going to die?" "No," said Zoe, "but she always had the feeling she wouldn't live long. She often said she had to hurry, that she didn't have much time. I thought it was just her passion, her rush to become successful. But maybe she felt something. And the composition? How did it end up in our archive?" "I did that," confessed Zoe, 3 months ago. "I came secretly to New Orleans, slipped backstage during a concert, and put the score in a box of old compositions. I hoped someone would find it and play it." "Why didn't you just send it to me?" asked André. "Because Lily wanted it to happen organically. She didn't want it to feel like a favor. She wanted her music to be discovered because it was good, not because she had died." André swallowed with difficulty. "She was special." "She was," whispered Zoe, "and I miss her every day." André looked at Nathan. "Zoe, Nathan would like to talk to you." He handed the phone to Nathan, who took it with trembling hands. "Zoe, I'm sorry, Nathan," she said, crying. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you this earlier, but I promised Lily I would do it her way." "You did nothing wrong," said Nathan. "You fulfilled her wish, and I'm grateful for that." They spoke for a few more minutes, both crying, both remembering the girl they both missed so much. Then Nathan hung up and gave the phone back to André. "She's coming back next week," he said. "For a memorial?" André nodded. "Good, but there's still one question that hasn't been answered." "What's that?" asked Jackson. "The voice," said André. "Lily's voice during the sound check. Zoe delivered the USB, but how does that explain the voice we heard during rehearsal?" No one had an answer. Melody looked at the window where stars were beginning to appear. "Maybe," she said softly, "some things aren't meant to be explained." The days after the concert became a whirlwind of emotions and unanswered questions. The performance had gone viral. Millions of people around the world had seen the video of André Rieu stopping his concert for a crying man. Comments poured in, some skeptical, others touched, but all wanted to know more about Lily Winters. André sat in his office in New Orleans, staring at the score of Echo of the Stars. He had played the piece dozens of times since that evening, but each time it felt different, as if the music was alive, breathing, trying to tell him something. Jackson came in with a stack of papers. "The media want interviews. Everyone wants to hear the story." "No," said André decisively. "This isn't entertainment. This is Lily's legacy. We treat it with respect." Jackson nodded. "I've rejected all requests, but there is something you should know. More people have come forward. People who say they knew Lily or heard her music." André sighed. "Of course, always the same. But there is one message that's different," said Jackson. He placed a letter on the desk. "This came this morning. It's from Lily's teacher, Mrs. Caldwell." André opened the letter and began to read. Mrs. Caldwell wrote about Lily's talent, her dedication, and her dreams. But at the end of the letter was something that caught André's attention. "Lily once told me about a promise she had made. When she was 11 and in the hospital, she met a violinist who inspired her. She promised him that one day she would prove to him that music could heal." André put down the letter, his hands trembling. "I remember that day," he whispered. Jackson frowned. "Which day?" André stood up and walked to the window. "Years ago, I did a benefit concert at the Children's Hospital in Boston. There was a girl, maybe 11 years old, who asked me if music could heal pain. I said yes if it's played with love. She smiled and said that one day she would prove I was right." "That was Lily," said Jackson softly. "Yes," agreed André. "And now, All these years later, she has kept her promise. That evening, André visited Nathan in his apartment. Nathan looked better than the last time. His eyes were clearer, his posture straighter. "Mr. Rieu," he said in surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to talk to you," said André, "about Lily, and about what happens now." They sat at the kitchen table. André told about the letter from Mrs. Caldwell, about the memories of the hospital, and about his feeling that Lily's music couldn't stop with just one concert. "I want to establish a foundation," said André, "the Lily Winters Foundation for Young Musicians, to help talented children who otherwise wouldn't have a chance." Nathan's eyes filled with tears. "She would have loved that." "And I want you to be involved," continued André. "As an advisor, as an ambassador, Lily's voice must not die." Nathan nodded, too emotional to speak. After a moment he said, "There's something else you should know." "What's that?" Nathan got up and went to Lily's room. He came back with a small box. "I found this yesterday hidden under her bed. I think she left it there just in case." André opened the box. Inside lay letters, dozens of letters, all addressed to different people. His own name was on one of the envelopes. He opened it with trembling hands and began to read. "Dear Mr. Rieu, if you're reading this, it probably means I'm no longer here. Strange to write something like that, but I've been feeling for a while that my time is short. When I was 11 and in the hospital, you changed my life. You said music could heal if played with love. That day I decided I would devote my entire life to music, not for fame or money, but to heal others as you had healed me. I wrote Echo of the Stars for you, but also for my father. He has done so much for me, and I wanted to leave him something that would comfort him. If you're reading this, I ask you one thing. Play my music, not for me, but for all people who are in pain and need hope, and tell my father that I love him, always. With love, Lily." André couldn't read any further. Tears streamed down his face. He looked at Nathan, who was also crying. "She knew it," whispered André. "She knew she wouldn't live long." Nathan nodded. "I think so too, but she wasn't afraid. She was only concerned about those she would leave behind." They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, André spoke. "She was an old soul, Nathan. Wiser than most of us will ever be." "She was," agreed Nathan, "and I'm so proud of her." A week later, Jackson Square was again filled with people. But this time, it was different. No concert lights, no cameras, no show business. Only candles, thousands of candles, filling the square with a warm, soft light. This wasn't a performance. This was a memorial. André Rieu stood on the stage, his violin in his hands, looking out over the sea of people. Nathan sat in the front row, next to Zoe, who had come especially from Germany. Melody stood next to André, ready to play along. Mrs. Caldwell, Lily's teacher, sat among the spectators, a handkerchief in her hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," André began, his voice soft but powerful, "tonight we are not here to entertain. We are here to remember, to honor, and to celebrate a young woman who has taught us all what music truly means." He raised his violin and began to play. Echo of the Stars filled the square, the melody floating through the night like a whisper from heaven. And then, as he played, something remarkable happened. People in the audience began to hum along, softly at first, then louder. It was as if Lily herself was singing through them. Nathan closed his eyes and let the music wash over him. For the first time since the accident, he felt peace. He felt Lily's presence, not as pain, but as warmth. She was there, in every note, in every breath of the melody. When the piece ended, silence fell, and then one person began to applaud, then two, then 1,000. The applause rolled across the square like a wave of love and respect. André put down his violin and spoke again. "Tonight I announce the establishment of the Lily Winters Foundation for Young Musicians. This foundation will support young talents who have dreams, just like Lily, and it will ensure that her music lives on through everyone she inspires." The crowd cheered. Nathan stood up, tears streaming down his face, but he was smiling, a real smile, for the first time in a year. After the memorial, people came forward to share their stories. A young violinist told how Lily's music had inspired her to continue when she wanted to quit. A mother told how Echo of the Stars had helped her process the loss of her own daughter. An old man told how the melody reminded him of his deceased wife. André listened to each story, his heart full. This was what Lily had meant. Music didn't heal through magic, but through connection, by making people feel they weren't alone. Later that evening, André and Nathan sat together on a bench at the edge of the square. The stars twinkled above them, bright and numerous. "Do you think she can see us?" Nathan asked softly. André looked up. "I think she's always with us, in the music, in the memories, in the lives she has touched." Nathan nodded. She always wanted people to hear her music, and now millions of people have. More than that, said André, they have heard her heart, and that is much more powerful. They sat for a while listening to the silence of the night, and then very softly, as if the wind whispered it, they heard it. A melody, barely audible, but unmistakable, echo of the stars. Nathan looked around in amazement. Do you hear that? André smiled. Yes, I hear it. Where is it coming from? From everywhere, said André. And from nowhere. It's Lily's echo, and it will never stop. Nathan leaned back and closed his eyes. For the first time since the accident, he felt Lily was at peace. She had fulfilled her dream. She had shared her music, and she had proven that love and art are stronger than any grief. The next morning, André published a video on social media. It was a simple recording of him playing Echo of the Stars with a message underneath, for Lily and for everyone who dreams. Your music deserves to be heard. The video went viral. Within days, hundreds of musicians had uploaded their own versions of the piece. Orchestras around the world began to include it in their repertoire. Lily's name became synonymous with hope, perseverance, and the power of music. And somewhere, among the stars, Lily smiled. Her echo had reached the world, and it would continue to echo forever.